Hey guys, welcome back to Vision Youth Podcast. Once again, thank you for connecting, for listening, watching, whatever it is you're watching. We got some places that we didn't think of people were listening to. Shout out to the Russian people. That one was awesome to see. Let's get connected. Andy, how you doing today?
Pretty good. I'm super excited to be here and to share a little bit of time and learn about our new guests today.
Yeah. How about you, Sergio?
Like Andy, happy to be here, A little different. It's going to be an English
podcast. Yeah, I was going to say that.
Yeah. It's weird hearing Andy speak English. But
Andy's are Spanish. We're really excited today. We have two very special guests. We have a very powerful, amazing story that I know is going to be a great experience for people listening. And we want to introduce you guys to Russel and Erin Bowie. How are you guys?
Good. Thanks for having us.
No, thank you for coming. How do you? We mentioned. Have you guys been in a podcast before?
Not necessarily a podcast. No, I've done some question and answering stuff, but not necessarily a podcast. So it's a little new for me.
This is my second time on a podcast, but in a different
and soon
spot.
to be 3 because we're doing the girls one after at church.
Oh, there you go.
Well, I know. I know you guys through church at work. Man, I've known you guys for like 3 months.
Yeah, solid.
Yeah. I see Erin pretty much every week. We work at the church, and then I see you on a weekly basis. And honestly, you guys have been a blessing, not just to the church and the people around, but to my life as well. The reason why I like to bring guests here is so we can share. We all have our story. We all have something that we've gone through. Some things might be a little harder than others. And today I think it's going to be a pretty cool experience. Tell us a little bit about you guys.
All right. So I guess I'll start. My name is Russell. I work in construction. I do a lot of remodeling and stuff like that. I'm 32 years old now.
Yep.
I'm just gotta make sure. I've been married to Erin for 7, going on 8 years. So it's been a good time. So
Has been, yeah. I'm Erin, and I'm a children's pastor. I get to work with Hugo on a weekly basis, which has been fun.
That's a privilege.
It is a privilege. Yeah. I don't know what else. You guys will find out more about us as we go on. It's hard to. I don't know. Fun fact: we both have our motorcycle licenses.
yeah, that's true.
When she told me that they were selling the whole motorcycle, and she's like, "Yeah, I sold mine." I was like, "You ride motorcycles?" It's like, "Yeah." And then she posted another one. She's like, "Oh, that's my mom's." I was like, "Oh, the whole family rides then."
They do, yeah.
Yeah, it's a family affair, right?
It is.
That's good. You guys are high school and church sweethearts, right?
Yeah, that's true. We met at youth group, really. We met at church. She went to a high school different than me, but we met when she was 15 and I was 17. We went on a missions trip together to Mexico, and that's when we really hit it off. And
So your movie title would be "Falling in Love in Mexico."
yes, pretty much, exactly. Yeah,
There you go.
yeah.
You got any tips for my boy Sergio here? He's going through the same thing, so he just needs the missions trip, I think.
yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I think the mission trip will seal the deal.
That's the catch, right?
Yeah, totally.
Man, that's awesome. I feel like you don't see that as much anymore. Especially like when you think of high school dating. High school dating is more like, I always remember that people would date for even a year or whatever. That was like, wow, you guys are dating a while.
Long time.
But
Yeah.
they break up and a week later there was someone else, and I was like, how'd you forget about her so quick,
All right.
Yeah, but that's awesome. So you guys, how long have you been married together in general?
So we've been together 15 years
Yeah.
total.
Yep. Half
Something
my
like
life.
that. Yeah.
There you go.
Yep. So
That's
long time, and I think we both were really much in like the kind of like in it for the long haul kind of deal. We
Yeah.
never really were like, this is just a fling thing, you know.
Yeah.
It was like, no, we both really wanted to find somebody serious. So
Yeah, we did it with intention.
yeah,
I think right from the start, like both of us knew dating is how you get to marriage, right?
Yeah.
And so that was our end goal. And so it's kind of wild to think that we found that in high school, but once we found it, we weren't willing to let go.
yeah, exactly.
going through that. Did you guys have any like, I wouldn't want to say issues or problems, but was it difficult or was it easy? You know, because starting from a very young age too. So you guys dated around 7 years, seven.
Yeah, 7
Yep.
years before we got married.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, was there some like bumps in the road?
Like any relationship, that you got to work through for it, you know, and it's not easy, you know, for sure. And we really we started off so young that it was really growing up together,
Yeah.
you know, and being intentional on what we do, where we go, and you know, making sure that, you know, we're exclusive, you know, and like it's, you know, it's just the two of us, you know, there's nobody else, no room for anything else, and keeping an open communication was important.
That's awesome. That's what you
Yeah.
call goals, guys.
I'm just curious. Who was the one that gave the first step? You know, just
It was me. Yeah, I was. It was back in the IM days, the instant messenger days.
Yeah.
Computer. I didn't have a cell phone, or maybe I just had a cell phone. And
I
she
barely
had-
know about it, so they probably have no idea about it.
Okay, so AIM was like a. It was like it's like Facebook Messenger before Facebook was really a thing, and you would just connect with people and you could just talk to people like just literally instant messaging on.
I got in when Hotmail had their messenger.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, yes.
yeah,
Yeah,
that was my.
like that. Yeah. So
Got a little bit
step.
into high five. I don't know if you guys.
No, we
you
didn't
I don't
do
know.
that.
you didn't
I don't
use
know
high
high
five.
five. No.
Yeah, that was a little.
Yeah.
And now I remember when Facebook was introduced. It was like it was weird at first.
Yeah.
But talking about that, what are you guys' thought now on, since we're in the dating topic, this whole like social media and you know, there's good things about it, but there's also bad things about it. There's a quote that it says, technology brings you closer to the people who are far away,
Yeah.
but it brings you farther from the people that are close to you. And we've seen a lot of, you know, scams and stuff, but we've also seen a lot of problems when it comes to kids trying to find love. You know, some older people going acting like they're younger stuff. What are you guys' thought on like social media in the sense like how old do you think they got to be, since you work with kids? You know, what is that one?
I don't know how old you have to be. I think what's really important is like creating boundaries on social media. For me, myself, even, everything is private, and I only accept people that I have met in person and had like actual conversations with.
Yeah.
I think that those are just good rules to live by on social media, especially for younger kids, because it's so easy to fall into the trap of like, oh, I want likes, or especially on Snapchat. Like, that's just a dangerous app to begin with, especially when you're young and just exploring who you are and who your friends are and everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You guys have anything to say, right?
Yeah. You were talking about exclusive. I don't know, like now, kids nowadays, like with the open relationships and all the stuff. How do you guys like manage that, like being exclusive? And because
Well,
nowadays, like we can see everything.
It's true. Yeah. So, like, I mean, exclusive, like, as if, like, you know, you have to be intentional about being, like, just having eyes for her, and not allowing myself to be in positions or to put myself in a place of temptation that there are other things. There's other people, there's other girls out there that are cute to me too, but it's really making sure that I have eyes only for her, and that, you know, I don't allow or put myself in a position where I'm tempted to look or go after somebody else. Really, is what.
We have a lot of like open communication and boundaries that we put in place, you know. So if I'm out with someone who is not, a female, I usually text Russell to say, hey, just so you know, me and so are going out and doing this or whatever. And I always like run it by him so he knows. So there's no secrets. Everything's out in the open. And then if I do have any friends who are, of a different gender, I always make sure Russell gets to know them. And so like everything, so then it's like everyone's friends. It's not really just like,
Right.
well, I have this friend over here,
That's my work friend, or exactly, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I think in that area in the Hispanic community, it's very, very dangerous. There's something about the Hispanic community. We call it chicle, which is gum. It's like you're always like chewing on it. So when you're chewing, hey, you want a piece of gum? So it's like, oh, you want to know about this. Hispanics, maybe not just Hispanics, but a lot of other cultures, they like to add more than in reality happen. So if someone sees another person, like they say, Sergio goes, because he's a cell group leader and he also leads the youth with Andy, and like let's say they see him with like one of the disciples, even if Kelly agrees or something, they'll eat him alive. So it's like, but I feel at the end of the day, what matters is what your partner says or what your partner thinks.
Yeah.
And I think that's good that you guys have that open. Your, how would I mention it? How would I say it? Like
the communication.
Yeah, the communication wise, it's very good to have that. But getting a little, or I don't know if you have a.
Yeah, I was gonna say, were you guys always open like that when you were dating, or is this something that you've transitioned to? Like, obviously married,
Right.
You guys talk to each other and let each other know where you're going and like that. But were you like that, in the beginning stages of you guys dating and all?
Yeah, I think that it developed more as we were dating. The more we got to know each other, the more we were open and serious about the relationship. You want to be open and communicative. I think that because we were intentional about it, that the communication kind of came naturally, but it definitely expounded and became, there was more communication as the relationship grew and got into marriage more.
Yeah. I think also, so for us, since we started dating so young, I actually went away to college and Russell stayed home. So we did 3 years of long distance. And so I lived in Pennsylvania and he lived here in New York. And so that was like really important to us to continue like that communication piece and be, as open as possible, because he didn't see me every day. I came home once a month. And then I did internships over the summer, so it was really like 3 years of
full years.
Yeah, 3 full years.
Yeah, it was a long time.
That had to be tough.
It was tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had about 2.5 years of dating before that.
Right.
And then she went
So you
away.
guys were pretty close already.
Yeah, we had developed a good foundation of a relationship before that, which was good, But
I think the other thing for us, we both are products of divorce. Both of our parents are divorced, and my parents more recently than Russell's, and so that has been indicators to us of like communication is huge within relationships, and like learning how to communicate, learning how each other communicates, what needs to be communicated, and so we've kind of leaned more into that.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much everyone here comes from that. With divorce or separation, of the parents.
Yeah.
For example, with my dad, I'm the only one, mom and dad. So through my mom, I have half brothers, and also through my dad. Okay. So yeah, that's one thing that I always think about. If you want to get into a relationship, that you got to break that curse, because it's not just from my dad's side. There's been generations of just, so it's one thing you got to work through and hard, which is not easy, I think that thought, it's always in your head.
Right.
Like, what if I get divorced, Like, I have a friend who was about to get married, and his thought is like, what if I don't get married, because he's gone through something similar. But talking a little more deeper, you guys said you guys are high school and church how were you guys introduced to like God, Christianity?
Christianity. I started really going to church. My parents helped found a church. Helped plant a church. That's what I'm trying to say. Plant a church before I was born. So they were Christians before I was born, and so like really, I grew up kind of in a Christian home, and I gave my heart to the Lord at like 6 years old,
Wow.
and kind of just have always been kind of submersed in Christianity and going to church. So early on for me.
Same for me. I grew up in a Christian home, and at 8, I at VBS, accepted Christ. But it wasn't really until I was 13 that I had like an actual relationship with God and like understood who He was and had like an experience for myself with Him. And then from then on, my walk with Him, really I rooted myself more in Him and leaned into that. But I was around Christianity a lot growing up, but it wasn't really until I was 13 that it became like my own decision.
Okay. And through the whole storyline till today, was there any bumps, any moments where you got far from God, or has it always been like a constant relationship with God?
Right. So for me, like there's always bumps in the road. There's always life's ups and downs.
Yeah.
I would say that for me there was not very many times where like I backslid or anything like that. But there were times where I felt that I was a little further away from God, or that like maybe He was silent for a period of time,
Yeah.
and I didn't really hear from Him, and so I felt farther away. Although He wasn't not like it's not like He wasn't there. It just not hearing from Him, kind of like in a valley, But other than that, I can't really think of a time necessarily where I was like walking a different direction.
Yeah, same. Hugo asked me in the office if I'd ever done anything. Like, what's the most rebellious thing I've done? And I was like, I'm a goody two shoes. I haven't done anything.
I was like, damn. Me too.
Yeah.
So pretty much the whole way of their relationship has been a God center focused relationship.
Yeah.
Which that's awesome. Now, is there anything you would like to say to people that are maybe they grew up? For example, Sergio, he pretty much grew up at church. He's a singer. Do you play any instruments?
I don't.
No, okay. All right. So he plays instruments. He does not sing. I'm just kidding. Andy also is Sergio plays piano, violin, drums.
Nice.
You played the bass
awesome.
a couple times. Guitar.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. Andy plays the bass, the drums.
Nice.
Just the
There's
and I
yeah. I play the. No, I don't play anything. Sadly.
Spotify.
Yeah, I have my story that I took 2.5 years of piano classes. It all became an offering to the church. I know like a little bit of Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, but I can't use it in a moment of worship on church. So yeah, is there anything because we know that there's people going through, maybe grew up at church, but they're being introduced to other things at school. Mm-hmm. For example, I feel like schools nowadays, when I was in school, I was like, man, this is tough. It's hard to be a Christian. Mm-hmm. But then now I hear what goes on at schools now. It's like, man, I kind of had it easy, especially technology getting extremely more advanced as we go through time. What is one advice or something that you can say to those people who are trying to keep that relationship, but they're also fighting to explore the world, we'll say?
Right.
I think for me, finding community that also believes the same things as you. So you're surrounding yourself by people who believe the same, can encourage you, can like navigate through some of the like unknowns with you. For me, it was really imperative. I really leaned into youth group when I was going through high school, and those friends were in school with me. And so I kind of had like my youth group friends that we navigated high school with together, which I think was really important and impactful. So I would say find yourself a community of people who can encourage your walk with Christ instead of point you away from Christ.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would say that, recognize the people that are peer pressure you into doing things that you know you shouldn't be doing, and try to steer clear of those type of people, because they're just there to get you to do things that you don't believe.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Now, what would you say to those people who are working with youth? For example, us three, we're working with youth who are on the verge of like, do I want to follow Jesus? Do I want to explore? How, as a individual, how can we present the love of God? How can we bring that hope that people are trying to find out there, but in reality, only God gives?
Yeah. I think what is huge is just being a place of safety for those kids to explore. I think a lot of times we can be quick to be like, no, you can't do that or do this or whatever. Just being a place where we can talk through like, oh yeah, so that's what your friends are doing, and kind of like not be shocked by things, because I think that creates an environment of safety and security to be able to walk through those things. And then that grows with the kids of like, oh, I can come to this person, you know, about anything because they're not judging. Granted, there are things that we believe and we don't believe, right? And so like you don't want to give support to somebody to do something that like you ultimately don't line up with. But I think being able to be that safety space for them to come to you, to open up that door to have that conversation.
Yeah, I agree. I would agree with that. Yeah, and being an active listener, somebody that's like actually gonna listen to them, and not just kind of like, oh no, yeah, this is what you should be doing, but in a loving way.
Yeah, I think that's very important, the listening part of it, because I feel like it's hard to get youth nowadays because they just want, and I include myself when I was trying to go out there and stay in church, was I wanted to hear the things that I wanted to hear, I wanted to hear like those positive things, so whatever I heard that it's okay, this is where I'll be. You have a
Have you guys like are being like youth leaders ever or no?
So I'm the children's pastor at the church, but I help a lot with our youth group. So that's like middle school and high school. So pretty much like 18 and below I deal with.
Yeah. She's usually the one that goes to youth group and helps out with youth group. I'm more stay at home. I help out in other ways at the church, but the youth is really her go-to. But I could help out more.
It's my job.
It's our job.
And how do you guys connect with the youth? Because nowadays like, it's kind of difficult, and because of the social media and all the stuff. And yeah, how do you guys like?
Yeah, I don't know half the stuff they say. But I think, again, the most important way that I connect is like just being there for them, showing an interest in what they do, showing an interest in whatever TikTok they're trying to show me or whatever YouTube they're following or anything like that. Because I think youth lack adults in their life that are invested and want to experience life through their eyes and through the way that they do that. And so just being a person that they can like share their life with, share their interest with, whether I understand it or not, I think builds that connection.
Yeah. Now we'll move ahead of time a little bit. Growing up as Christians, following God, was there any moments through the relationship with God where you had to go through a process? Something. We'll get deeper in the rest, but was there anything else that maybe it was tough to understand, that it was tough to, for example, my thing was, trying to take in, like I'm not living with both my parents, coming into a whole new country and being introduced to a whole new language, a whole new culture, and so to me, I used to like that famous question is like, why me? You know, like, what did I do to deserve this? You know, I didn't want to be here. Excuse me, I never said, hey, I want to go to U.S. and, you know, I was put here, and I would always tell God, like, why? You know, I don't know if there was a situation in your guys' life where maybe something similar where we're trying to make sense of something.
Well, before we were married, we've been through things since we've been married that we've kind of questioned God, like, what is going on? And we can get into that too. But before we were married, I had a friend, my first year of college, who passed away pretty like traumatically. And that messed me up. And I was like, God, what the heck? Like, what is going on? I like went into a state of just being like terrified and fearful. I didn't want to drive by myself anywhere. I didn't want to like be by myself. I had a lot of fear. But through that year, I like leaned into God, and I prayed a lot, and I learned a lot about prayer. I learned a lot about like gaining strength and peace from God through that. And I also learned a lot about forgiveness in that time period as well.
Yeah. For me, I think really early on, this was again before we got married, but I think she was in college. I was like in college working kind of back and forth, but it was when my parents got divorced.
Yeah.
It was really a big deal for me and my family because my family was really close, you know, and we were supposed to be like, you know, like good Christian family, you know, and the picture perfect family, and again, we were just like super, super close, and it kind of just came out of nowhere for us as kids. And for me, my two sisters were at college, and so they were out of the house. I was still in the house going to college, in a community college, and then working on and off. And so like I was going through the whole thing while the parents were going through the whole thing. And so that was difficult.
Yeah.
It was a couple months of like just like, you know, beating heads and just, you know, rough nights and stuff like that. And so it was quite a bit of a struggle for me to watch my parents go through that. And you know, I was definitely like what the heck?
Yeah. No, I completely understand.
Yeah.
I connect a lot with what you said. I was sharing with Russell something similar this morning, where I think will lead us to the main topic of the day. I lost a friend. He was like my only Christian friend that I had during high school, and it got to a point where he got really sick. You know, where people were trying to figure out what it was. And you know, they found out later on that it was cancer. And so, but he never lost that. Maybe he already knew that he was gonna go, so he was like, I'm just gonna live it at my best, you know. Where he would always invite me to church, like, and you know, he would go in like, and people would tell him like, what are you doing here? Go home, go rest. And he would always invite me to his church. And he was a very huge example in my life because going through that whole process, he always kept a smile, you know, and he would always be like, what can I do? You know, I'm not gonna stop so seeing him go with, you know, I was like, God, such an amazing heart. You know, why do you have to let this happen? Why do you have to allow such thing to go on? And I think this is where we go into your huge part of your guys' life, where you also receive some bad news. You know, you can.
All right.
This is where
this is the stuff. Yeah. So, so 2000, late 2016, 2017. At that time, it was 26 years old, 27, something like that.
My age, bro.
And you know, I started to get into a lot of pain. Kind of the same idea, like, you know, doctors trying to figure out what it was. You know, they didn't know what it was. It was it was probably like September through December that the doctors had no idea what was going on. You know, I was in excruciating pain, you know, joints, pains, everything like that. They diagnosed me with Lyme's disease, and so they started giving me a drug called doxycycline, which kind of kills your immune system. And what it's supposed to do is kill the immune system, kill the Lyme disease, and get rid of it. But what it also does is kills the immune system that's fighting any other diseases that are going on. So, so it was about 7 or 8 weeks of that, and nothing, no change, still in excruciating pain. I was taking really strong pain meds that like would only last for an hour, and I would be up all night, excruciating pain. I couldn't sleep, and finally in December, I think it was. I was showering and I felt something that was not right, and then I went to a specialist and showed them, and within the same day, I had an ultrasound that said that basically I had a growth, and that night I did what you shouldn't do is go on Google and say, what does this mean?
I think that's something that we all do, you know. Like something comes up, we're like, Google.
What is
what
that?
does this mean?
Exactly.
What to do, you know?
So you know, so I looked it up, and it was you know, cancer was one of the things, and I felt I was like, yes, this is cancer. You know, I just in my spirit, I felt this is cancer, and that was a really rough night for me. I was very distraught. I was very frustrated and upset. But I felt like at that moment that the peace of the Lord came over me, also in my distress. And so I went. I had a doctor's appointment, like I don't know, maybe later that week or the next day or something like that. It was like really close. And so you know, when I went into that doctor's appointment, they said, you know, this is, you know, a growth. We won't know if it's cancerous unless we biopsy it, which is removal, which means they have to go and remove it. And so, you know, they had gone in and removed the cancer or the tumor, and it was actually cancer. But it wasn't only just one cancer; it was 5 different cancers, and in the same biopsy.
I literally just found that today when we were talking about it, and I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
Now you as the partner, how was the whole process of, you know, one, seeing him in pain, seeing him suffer, you know, how was that on you?
Yeah, it sucked. It was hard because there weren't any answers for what seemed like months, you know, and he was in pain, he was having fevers, he was just like unable to work. We were like going to the doctor a bunch. When he said he couldn't sleep, like literally the only way he could sleep is in like a hot bath. And so he would wake up in the middle of the night, go make a bath as hot as possible, and then sleep in the bath. So I would lay in bed, and our bathroom was like right up against our bedroom, and just listen to see like, please don't drown, please don't fall in, please don't like. Yeah. So for like months, I would just like lay in bed listening to see where he was and what was going on and if he was okay. Because I couldn't do anything but just, and it wasn't helpful for me to stay up all night either. But you know, what else are you gonna do?
Now, in the part of your whole timeline, how did you feel towards God? You know, how knowing that you guys have been serving the Lord since you remember. You know, you were already a kids pastor by then, right? You know, you were both involved in church. How was that in your spiritual life? You know, with God, was it a moment where I'm guessing there's lots of questions? You know, but yeah,
Yeah. So for me, it was really that initial night was where I was like frustrated because I felt in my spirit again that the Lord said that this is cancer. I was frustrated and annoyed.
Yeah.
Kind of the same, like, why me? You know, why is this happening to me? But after that, after the peace that the Lord gave me, I felt like I could just trust Him. And in a sense, He was saying, you know, like I got you. Like I'm going to carry you through this.
Yeah.
But and I feel like I kind of hung on to that kind of throughout the whole process. And just so, like, when I went in and the doctor told me what it was, I had a peace about it, and I was like, okay, so what do we do? You know, and it wasn't like this, like, oh my God, oh, you know, like,
That's
what's
incredible.
happening? You
I
know,
would
like,
have just thinking about it, you know, like for like I said about my friend, you know, like I got mad towards the whole situation, and that wasn't even happening to me. It was happening to someone who pretty much was like my brother, you know, and seeing him suffer, seeing him go through that, and just saying goodbye was like, why God? Like, you know, it's like the whole question, aren't you this like loving God, this good God?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah, how did it hit you? No.
Yeah, I think like what Russell said that night, we prayed. Once he like Googled and he was like, Erin, this is gonna be cancer. Like we're gonna find this out. We were both like instantly in fear, right? Because you hear cancer and your brain comes up with a million different things of like what the outcome could be.
Right.
And the reality is that we didn't know what the outcome was gonna be. And so we were just fearful. So I remember sitting in our living room and being like, we just have to pray. And we prayed, and it was tangible, the peace that came over us of like, just like this blanket of peace. And so I think we held on to that because that was like, all right, God is with us. We're not navigating this alone. And so I think that kind of set us up for like, okay, we're just going to cling to Him. Like, if He's going to give us the peace to walk through this, like, He's with us, right? He's not abandoning us, but we don't understand why this is happening.
Right.
And we told all of our family, and I think some of them felt very similar to you, of like just being angry. I remember your mom, she was like, I'm just so pissed at God. Like,
I bet.
and your dad, too.
oh, my dad, yeah. Like, just like, he kept saying to Russell, I wish I could take this on me. I wish I could have it instead of you. If I could take it, like, week after week, that's all he kept saying, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Trying to think I was going to say something. But
Yeah, you were mentioning earlier today how, you know, your dad was always like trying to he would say what you said. It's like, you know, give it to me, God, you know, like we'll take it away from him. It's very you know,
And do you guys like still in church, like going to church and through that process?
yeah. I continued to go through church, go to church. I'm kind of fuzzy on when during the whole pain process of how often I was going to church.
We went, I mean,
I think we did, and I just kind of sucked it up.
Yeah. It was hard because I'm a children's pastor, so like part of my job is to be at church on Sunday, and we wanted to be at church, like,
Right.
but part of that was like, all right, Russell, we're gonna get up, we're gonna go to service, and he would hide out in my office because he was like, I'm in pain, I don't really want to talk. Like, when you're in pain, you're just like,
yeah.
you don't want to be around anyone.
Right. Yeah. I would go through service. I would sit and listen to service, worship, but actually interacting with people was hard.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to show that I was in excruciating pain, which I was, because we had gone to it was a different church that we went to than the one that we're in now, and it was somewhat early on to when we started going to that church that I got cancer, and I didn't have a really sturdy church family that would back me at the time. They knew who I was. They knew who I, you know, like I was married to the children's pastor, but they didn't, you know, they didn't have a relationship with me where I could be open and be honest and be like, yeah, no, I feel like straight crap right now. So, you know, so I would hide. Yeah, I would hang out in her office, hide away.
And for you, how difficult was serving God in that situation?
I don't remember it being hard. I think what was hard was like, how do we navigate the next steps of this? You know, of like, clearly I didn't want him to be in pain. But I don't know. I think that we both have the gift of faith, like the spiritual gift of faith, because at no point did we like give up on God. I think because of the different things that we've been through even before we reached this, like, you know, with my friend passing away, like I learned the perspective of like, I can either go through this with God or I can go through this without God. But like, no matter what, we have to go through this.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I rather go through it with God than like by myself. I don't know.
Yeah.
100%.
I think that's very cute what you said, you know, we can go through this with God or without God, you know, because trust me, I believe like if it were anybody else, you know, and that would come up in their, you know, to them, they'd be like, you know, why God, you know, why did you do this? And then be, you know, mad with God and be like, all right, God, we're going to go separate ways, you know, completely lose faith in him. But what you just said is very key, you know.
Yeah.
It's better to walk this with God than without, you know.
Right.
Because either way, you know, if you don't walk with God, you're losing.
Right.
So it's just more sense to walk with God, you know. And like to anybody else, you know, whoever, you know, is watching, because there'd be people, you know, that are connected with you guys, you know. It's always better to walk with God, you know, and have faith in him. You know, it's very admirable to hear you guys' story, you know. It indulges a lot of faith in me, you know, that maybe, you know, things come up, but there, you know, there's always somebody out there that's going, you know, through it harder, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. You know, and I think that having faith in Christ also gives you hope.
Yeah.
That you know, like the peace that we have. There's a hope at the end, and it's like the Lord says, you know, like I'm walking with you. You know, like I'm not going to leave you in this situation, especially when you're in the worst situation. You know, and even though, you know, I felt like I was getting dragged through the mud, and there's just like it was just like I didn't know what pain felt like until I felt pain. You know what I'm saying? Like there's like you cut your finger, or you break your wrist, or you break your arm or something like that, and it's like, oh, that hurt, you know. But like when you're in excruciating pain for 24/7, it's puts a whole nother perspective on things.
I honestly respect you, man, because both of you, in the sense of going through that, and literally it's like you're walking in a dark room, hoping not to bump into something, you know, because you guys were literally in a room where, in a part of your life where you had no idea what could happen. Now, was there a moment where you, as a person going through the having the cancer, and you, as the wife of the person who's going through, was there a moment in time where you guys felt like, you know, was there a thought like, all right, God, if I have to go, or if he has to go, you know, like, which I can't even imagine thinking about that, you know, because with the faith you look at the good things, but I guess, but also with faith you have to look at the both outcomes, you know, like, God, what's your purpose? What's your plan? What's there like a...
Well, you know, so much happened, you know, in that time frame, and I think that, you know, I had gone through chemotherapy. I had gone through multiple. So I think there was like 5 procedures, 5 surgeries that I had gone through. So, you know, the first surgery, the removal was, you know, the cancer that I had was testicular cancer. There were 5 different types. There was, I don't remember all of them, but the largest percentage was seminoma, then there was teratoma, and then there was a couple other ones. But those types of cancers kind of go into other, I was telling you earlier today, kind of go into other parts of the body. Yeah. And I had, you know, like teratoma goes into the bone. One of them that I had went in the lungs. One of them went into the brain. And for me, I had the possibility to go into those areas, but my lymph nodes, which are like a kind of like a sickness killing sac that like it caught all the cancer, kind of like the mutinous cell, mutating cells, yeah, and they became tumors. They just grew into tumors. So I had a tumor the size of a softball in my pelvis that was pressing up against my bladder, which was causing me all the pain.
Yeah.
And then I had, as a doctor kind of described it, was like a grapevine of tumors, kind of like hanging on my spine, kind of like all the lymph nodes on my spine. So, in the last surgery, so I had gone through chemo, kind of like an aggressive regimen of chemo, and it came up to this surgery where they were saying, okay, now we need to remove some of those lymph nodes that are now, they're supposedly just scar tissue. The chemotherapy is a poison and it kills and makes it scar tissue. We want to remove it and we want to biopsy it and see if there's any more cancer left. Basically, is what they want to do. So I went into a surgery that was supposed to be only like 3 to 4 hours. But it was basically they go through the front and they go all the way to your spine and they remove lymph nodes and then they do a biopsy of that. And I was on the surgery table for 11 hours. And they removed 47 lymph nodes. And that was a really tough time. But I remember walking away from Erin at the time saying, all right, I'll see you afterwards. Also thinking, this could be the last time I see her.
Yeah.
And so there was that kind of like brief moment of, I wouldn't say doubt, but the check in my spirit of like, I feel like I'm going to come through and I'll see you after. But what if this is the last time I see you as I walk away? She had to sit alone. So I'll let her continue telling that portion.
I think too, like anytime you go through something like this, there is always that thought of death. So even before we got to this surgery, like Russell and I started having conversations of like, like, who do you want to have your possessions? Like, if you don't make it through this, or like, what is life gonna look like? Or just for me, like, do I still want to live in this apartment if Russell's not here? And like, but those thoughts would come and then it would be like fleeting, like, no, I'm not gonna let that take over. Like Russell's here, we're gonna, God's with us, we're gonna work through this.
Right.
And so then we prepped for that surgery that was supposed to be 4 hours. And we were like we have a huge army of people supporting us through this, which I don't know that we've mentioned. We have our family, and then we had 2 church communities and just like armies of people praying for us, which we really felt the power of prayer through all of it. But Russell decided that he wanted to go into that surgery just the 2 of us, so like not to have anybody else in the waiting room with me while he was going through. And so we traveled down to Long Island for the surgery, and 4 hours in, I get a phone call from the operating room saying, well, we're going to be a little bit longer. And that's all they would tell me. And I was like, okay. And so then, I'm texting all of the group chats of like, this is the update, this is what's going on. And everyone's starting to panic. Well, why a little bit longer? And I was like, I don't know. They won't tell me. And then 2 hours later go by and they call again. And they're like, we're going to be a little bit longer. And so now I'm panicking, right, of like, my husband's on a table open and all they're telling me is like, it's gonna be longer. And I have no information to go off of that. We're already like in this surgery twice as long as it should be. And it's like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And so I'm tired and I'm like, God, what is happening? Like, is my husband gonna die on this table? Like, what am I gonna do? And so I started wrestling with God of like, God, like, I want to sit here and tell you what for and how come and yell at you. But like, I also had this check in my spirit of like, who am I to yell at God? Like if I am a believer and I say I want God's will to be done, I have to be willing to accept whatever God's will is. And like, and I remember telling God, like, God, if this is your will, I don't understand it. I will continue to be faithful to you, but I don't understand why you would take my husband, but I will continue to be faithful to you. I will continue to be who you have called me to be, but this is going to be hard.
I remember during the whole pandemic, I was one of the first thousands in Massachusetts who had COVID. And I went through a moment where, I called the doctors and they're like, oh, you're positive. And I was like, oh man, what do I do? Hope for the best. Those were the words those are the words that I received, just hope for the best. And I'm sitting in the basement. My mom went to pick me up all the way to Boston. And there was this one moment where I felt like it was over. I had no energy. I couldn't get out from bed. And then I started writing on my notes. I started writing the the username for my for the bank account, all the gear that I own in case they needed to sell it or something, how much it was worth. But it took me hours, one, because even just keeping my hands like this was like tiring. I had no energy. I had not eaten anything. I was dehydrated because I couldn't keep anything in. And the moment where I started writing what I had, that's when I'm like, I'm tearing up. I'm like, all right, God, I'm doing this because I honestly, I told him, I was like, I feel like I can't anymore. Like where turning around in bed was like, boom, like it was like I ran 30 miles, my bones were weak. And that moment was scary in the sense where I had no more energy. I had no more hope. I had no more. And I remember when I took the screenshot of the notes, I just broke. I was like, this is probably because I was like, what I'm telling you, like I was pretty much more towards heaven than earth. And I remember I put it as a lock screen, and I was like, if I don't make it, they'll have the information as a lock screen. I put the passcode and everything. But then I was like, really, God, this soon,
Yeah.
And I barely had words, because it was like, no, not even the energy to think, to have a conversation with God in my mind. Like, and I just remember I was like, if this is your will, do it, but I was mad. Same thing as you. Like your thought is like, really, like, why are you gonna? Well, like, in my head, I'm like, I'm so young. I have so many dreams. I have so many goals. Like, what was my purpose? Like, what was it that I did that it's time for me to go?
Right.
And I can imagine especially mine was nothing compared to what you had. So I admire that you guys put your faith. That faith is not like because a lot of people say, "Oh yeah, we got faith," but one little scratch comes, and it's like, "Oh God, why me?" Like, and now the fact that you're sitting in a room, or and all you're getting is, "It'll be longer," and I think that's where our faith is challenged. Because seeing the good outcome, it's kind of impossible, to like to with joy or rejoice in those moments, where it's like, God, you're do as you please. It's not. It's easy to say now, God, hey, do as you want, do as you please.
Right.
But when you're in that moment, those words are hard to come out.
Like, no, God, I want you to do what I want.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly, yeah.
And now moving on forward, how does God perform this miracle?
In a sense of, okay, yeah, so basically, they removed, like I said, 47 lymph nodes, and they did a biopsy on them, and so they all come back negative.
Wow.
Clear of all cancers, all different types of cancers. But now it's not just a cancer, which is said to be done, what I'm saying? And then there's a whole, 3 to 5 year process after that before you're considered out of the woods with cancer, which is, CAT scans and, biopsies and blood work like out the wazoo, and there's, repercussions from the, surgery. I had bowel obstructions, like because of my surgery, I had scar tissue and ligament. Scar tissue. We'll call it scar tissue. I forget the actual name of it, but scar tissue that kind of like adhered to my intestines, and so they weren't moving freely like they're supposed to, and had all these kind of like issues, and I couldn't eat anything. I was literally like blending like sweet potato soup and like
He was on a clear liquid diet.
I couldn't eat anything for like a whole year. So now this is like a whole nother year of like just issues that like I've been struggling with, like I struggle with, and doctors prescribe medication, and I'm like, just can we just do some sort of surgery to get it done, like, and so they do like a laparoscopic surgery, cut all that stuff, and that's done. So I okay, I can eat, like, actually eat food now, which is good. But really, one of the things that we really desired was kids, and because of the cancer, there was a very, very small chance that we would be able to conceive.
Yeah.
Not only because of the cancer, but because of the chemo, and because of the type of cancer it was.
Yeah.
And then expounding on that even more, so the surgery. The surgery itself is known to make it nearly impossible for conceiving.
Yeah.
And all kinds of reasons why, but really we'll just leave it at it makes it nearly impossible to conceive.
Now, in this moment of you guys wanting a child, you being placed as a kids pastor, was there a moment of like we'll say it, another moment of questioning, where it's like, man, I see kids all the time, like I know you would see, like, you would want to see your kids running around as well, Was there a moment where you just because you have told me that you guys got to the point where it's like, if we can't, we can't, But I guess it was a hard decision or a hard truth to accept.
Yeah, so, you get married in the Christian world, and like the next day everyone's like, so when are you having kids? When are you having kids?
Right.
And so Russell got cancer about 2 years into our marriage, and we had originally said like, oh, we'll wait about 5 years to have kids. And then we walked through this journey, and we were like, well, we'll see if we have kids. And so we just kind of kept telling people when they would ask us, like, I even told you, like, well, when are you going to have kids? Are you thinking about it? And our response would always be like, well, in God's timing, because we knew, like, there might not be a chance we could have biological children, like we could have kids, but like we might have to go through different pathways to get there, and navigating that. But being a children's pastor, I think I was never upset that I was working with kids and that they weren't my own. I think it kind of continued to build that passion and excitement for kids in my life. And we knew at the end of the day, somehow we would
be parents.
We just didn't know what that was going to look like or what the journey there was. And there was a lot for us, like, to navigate, like, how are we going to get there if we can't do this biologically?
Yeah. For me, there was one point in time I was really struggling with it. I was really like, I was just like crying, and I was praying to the Lord, and I was like, Lord, why? Like, I'm like, we want to have kids. We want to have kids so bad. Like, why would you allow this to happen to me so that, like, I can't have kids? And in that moment of just prayer, I just remember getting a vision of me playing, like, in my backyard with a little girl. And so I'm like, okay, Lord, like, you're telling me that I will have a little child of some sort, whether it's a girl or a boy, but I think it's a girl in my mind that I'm envisioning. So I kind of held on to that, kind of like, it wasn't like always in my mind, always replaying in my mind or anything like that, but I kind of always knew that, like, all right, Lord, like, all right, you say,
Like a sign of reassurance,
Yeah, exactly. But this is like, this is like, I'm going through it. I'm going through cancer, so this is like years ago, 6 years ago almost now. So, I just a long time. You know,
Now, how did you take when he told you the vision that he had? How did you take it?
In the moment,
Yeah.
I think I was like, oh, that's nice.
yeah,
Not very convinced.
no,
I held it very loosely. Russell had more hope and faith in having kids than I had. I think what got harder for us is when we actually started trying to have a kid. Like we were like, okay, like when God's timing, but we weren't really trying. And then we're like, okay, well, I'm 30. We should probably start like actually trying to have
right.
kids. Like it might take us a while. We might have to go through few different avenues to get there, and
Right.
like time wise. And I just felt discouraged and hopeless. I was like, this just isn't gonna happen for us. And I have had people in my life come up to me and say, I had a dream that, you're gonna have kids. And I'd be like, okay, kind of like, I'll believe it when I see it, like it's nice for you to say that. And sometimes it's hard. I feel like as Christians, people want to say nice things to you,
Yeah.
right? So they're like, don't worry, God's best for you. You'll have kids. And I'm like, did God say that to you, or are you just trying to comfort me? And so
Yeah.
there's this like navigating, I know you love me and I know you want the best for me, which means us having kids, but like, I want to know that God actually spoke that to you. And then I'm like, if God's speaking
Yeah.
that to you, then why isn't he speaking it to me?
Yeah.
right.
Well, it's crazy to talk about this whole roller coaster, and now I remember asking you one day, I was like, hey, when are you and Russell gonna have kids? Like, I see all the kids come and hug you, like you're so good with kids. And her thing was like, in God's timing. At the time I didn't know about the whole cancer thing. I didn't know about anything. And this is where I'll tell you guys my dream. So about 3 weeks in that I started working at church, I had a dream with you too. I didn't mention it or anything because it's kind of weird. Like I was telling you, I didn't have that like confidence relationship, and like, it's like, I had a dream about you, and
We're gonna be like, okay.
yeah, exactly. Like that's weird. Yeah. So I'm like, oh, no, I'm not gonna say anything. And then as time goes by, I told John about it, and he's like, you gotta tell him. I was like, I will. And then that's why I wanted to bring up the conversation, because that's when I started asking her about the dream and stuff. I mean the kids. I'm like, I need to create a conversation to bring the topic in.
Right.
And then
Dismissed it.
and then she mentioned your cancer, and I was like, oh yeah, I don't think this is the time for me to share my dream. It's kind of like,
Yeah, no.
yeah, I'm gonna wait for another moment. And well, funny thing is, guys, she lied to me.
No, technically, it is in God's timing.
It is in God's timing,
timing.
but there was a miracle that happened in you guys.
Yeah.
Now there's a little bump here,
a
so
literal
there's a
miracle.
baby, which is crazy to say. Like this whole roller coaster of negativity, and then now it's like we want kids, but we really can't.
Right.
And now you celebrating the fact that you're having a baby.
Yeah.
And, when I asked Erin, you guys already knew you were having a baby, but she's like, we want to make sure, everything was good, everything was right before you guys share it with your friends, your family.
Right.
So I had this dream, and I'm going to share it now. Because another thing I wanted to say, I was like, oh, man, I found out about the cancer thing. I found out about they can't have kids. And I'm like, if I say this dream, they're going to think I'm making it up or something. So I'm going to wait for the right moment. And John's like, you need to tell him. I was like, I'll tell him in the podcast. He's like, I can't wait to see the reaction. So, John, this is for you if you're watching. Yeah, I remember I was walking, and I saw this massive building. And I'm standing in the front yard, and I'm looking at it. And this is a very vivid dream. Like I was literally there. And I'm looking at the building, and I'm reading, it said Bowie's Family Center. And I was like, this is weird. This is like, and I remember that I started walking towards it. And the closer I got, I saw that there was two doors. There was a door on the left, and there was a door on the right, but towards like the center. And as I'm going closer to it, I hear a bunch of noise. And there's a bunch of kids coming out. On the left side, me facing the building, there's a bunch of kids with like tubes on their like on their nose, and they're all like bald, and they're running, and then you come out from that door, and on the right door, a bunch of kids. It's like preschool or like a church something event, and then you come out of that door, and I'm just sitting there, and I'm looking at the two doors, and then out of nowhere I hear clapping. I was like, what is this? And I turn around. You know how in dreams you just turn around, it's a whole different scenario. So I turn around, and it's you too. And you're cutting red, one of those red things. It's like the ignition of the building or something. And when you told me you were pregnant, that's why right away I was like, you're having a girl. Because towards your left, there was a taller girl. And towards your right, there was like a smaller boy. And I remember I'm just sitting there, and it was like I wanted to go and talk to you guys, but I couldn't. And it's like, then I wake up and I'm like, whoa, this is weird. I'm having a dream with two people that I barely know.
Wow.
And the moment you said you guys were pregnant, I was like, I was like, oh, it's a girl.
You're so confident.
Yeah, I was so confident. And and I wanted to say it, and was just like, I'm not going to say it now because it's going to sound made up or something. So I was like, I need to wait for the right moment.
Wow.
So yeah, I remember seeing the girl being the taller one. So that's when I was like, you're having a girl. Like, I was so confident about it. I was like, listen, I see you and Russell carrying a baby girl.
Wow.
And yeah, that was like, I woke up and I was like, whoa, like, how do I share this? How do I say this?
Right.
And at the time, I didn't know about barely. Like, I think when we talked the most was at your mom's house for the breakfast, which was a couple days after the
dream.
Yeah, so
Wow.
pretty weird,
That's crazy.
Yeah, and then
That's
now
awesome.
it's like when she was telling me in the office, I was like, man, do I say it? Do I wait? So I left it for the podcast.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. What a dream.
Yeah, it was.
Wow.
It was
That's
so
amazing.
vivid. Yeah. So now after I'm just like, I don't know what the message behind it is. I don't know, but like, that's why I was so confident about the girl. I was like, it's a baby girl, like, because the girl was the taller one.
And do you guys know if it's a boy or a girl?
We do?
We do.
It's a girl?
It's a girl.
Yeah, and it's crazy because he had the,
Yeah,
you
the
had
vision.
the whole like,
6 years ago.
Yeah.
A vision of a little girl.
Yeah.
And I playing.
Wow.
So, what's kind of strikes me is like, I had that vision 6 years ago.
Yeah.
I had to wait 6 years for my vision to come true.
yeah,
But I believe that it was the Lord.
yeah, 100%.
And so, I stayed, I continued to, when we doubted, continued to say, no. Well, the Lord showed me that we were going to have a little girl. But it was difficult.
I bet, yeah.
Difficult. So that's awesome, though. I love that dream.
Yeah, it was like, that's why I told John, I'm like, how do I tell them? Like, it's just like, I don't know how to interpret dreams at all. I barely dream, but when I dream, they're pretty vivid. They're like, I'm right there. But yeah, I wanted to share that with you guys. And well, no, I mean, congrats on the baby.
Thank
Oh,
you.
thank you very much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
funny story. I kind of named the baby already. Yeah, I don't know how that happened. It was like, so I'll tell you guys about it. It was we were talking about food.
Oh,
And
yeah.
she was saying that you were, gonna
Grill
you were,
some steaks.
You were hoping.
Yes.
She was hoping that you would grill some steak, and I was like, "Hey, tell him, baby Soraya." It's like, and then wants it, and then I send a message, and I was like, "Wait," and what I thought in my head, I text back. I was like, I just named your baby. Don't know how. It was just like I just threw it out there, and I was like, I'm sorry, like, but yeah,
we were
no.
dying.
Yeah,
I
we were
was like,
laughing.
Russell, Hugo just named our
Yeah,
baby.
it was so weird because I'm just like typing, and it's like, and it's like, oh wait, I named your baby. My bad, my fault. But no, congrats on the baby
Thank you.
girl.
Little baby girl.
I bet you guys are over the
We're over the moon.
Like a friend of ours says, over the clouds. They make fun of me
That's your
because
P.
yeah, because of the coffee. Because I showed him a picture of like where the coffee's grown, and you see clouds, and he's like, "Oh, that's above the clouds." So yeah, I honestly, guys, thank you for sharing that. I know it was not a easy time. It was not a time where it was all colors and but hey, the good thing is that you guys are out of it, and the promise keeps on building now.
Yeah.
The promise of the baby girl is here, and I can't wait to meet her.
Yeah.
She's got to learn Spanish. That's what I keep telling her.
Yeah. I completely agree.
By the way,
So
guys,
do we-
he's half Puerto Rican.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yep.
What can you say in Spanish?
Not a lot. No mucho. Un poquito. Yeah, unfortunately, my mom wasn't quote unquote allowed to speak much Spanish in the house. So I wish that she could when we were younger, and I would have loved that. But,
Well, now the baby will have a grandmother who will speak Spanish.
Yes.
And an aunt, because your sister's
yes,
fluent.
very fluent. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah.
And Hugh.
And you
Hugo.
Yeah, when he goes
Yes.
into the office.
That's right.
Yeah, so in case we're talking, you're going to have
fine.
to know what it is.
And that's fine. I just need to learn it.
Hey, I translated most of your text the other day. So.
You did. And I put a little message at the end, and I was like, if you're using Google Translator, I'm disappointed.
And that's the piece I didn't know.
Yeah. Before we finish, is there something you guys want to share, like a positive message behind, to tell people that there's still hope,
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, going through it all, in the moment is so difficult to recognize when something is Christ, But I can see that Christ's hand was in it the entire time, in every aspect from finding out that I had what I had, from doctor's appointments, from lining up doctor appointments. We're like, Lord, we have 10 appointments to make in a 5-day span. How are we supposed to do this? Yeah. And boom, 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 all lined up. Just how he was able to orchestrate the whole thing, and finances. How I couldn't work for the whole year. My finances were off the table. And we relied on Erin's salary, but also, just how people just gave out of their heart and that just carried us, and, man, just every aspect, God was in it. Yeah. He was there. And there was no doubt in our mind that he was carrying us through it, and especially looking back at it now, there was nothing that happened that was not in his hands.
Yeah. I think, too, we struggled a lot with, God, why don't you just go perform a miracle on Russell and heal him? And at the end of the day, we did need to go through what we went through. It strengthened our faith. It strengthened our relationship with our families. It strengthened our marriage. There were so many things that got rooted deeper in Christ by having to walk through this storm. And while we fully believe that Jesus could have healed him, it was in his best for us to actually have to walk through this. And so I think, for anyone listening, there are storms that come, and there are storms that we want to just say, God, take it. It would just be so much easier if you just took it off of my lap or out of my hands. But as you walk through it, you root yourself deeper. And they say, trees outside, when they go through storms, their roots grow deeper into the foundation. Yeah. And that's exactly what I feel like happened with us, is that our foundation in Christ got stronger and grew deeper, so that we're able to share this testimony and encourage other people and to walk alongside, and our compassion grew for people who walk through sickness and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, my dad, being also part of the construction, he said something once that it's crazy how a whole building, a whole house, all the weight, it's on the foundation. If you do a bad job in the foundation, it's going to collapse.
Right.
And just like you mentioned, sometimes we go through a storm, but it's like God building that foundation for what He's going to build in our lives, whatever the fruit that our life is going to bring. So, and it's difficult to go through those moments. It's hard to see the colors, to see the light at the end of the tunnel. But you guys are living proof that when you trust and believe God, you will come out of that tunnel. You will see the light. And I really really appreciate you guys coming, sharing
Absolutely.
the tough, rough part of your life where now we can say, God was there through it all, and now you guys are little by little celebrating all these little promises that God has for you guys, and we're excited to see what else is coming.
Us too.
Us too. Yeah, absolutely. No, we really appreciate you guys having us out here to talk with you guys and share with you guys. It's just been really nice.
Yeah.
Really nice.
Yeah, thank you for sharing this powerful testimony to us, us three and thousands of people that are watching us. And it took years to the miracle happen, but being strong in God's hand is difficult, but it's not impossible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
Very cool.
Oh yeah, like Andy said, very thankful for you guys, for opening up and coming out, out of your way, and telling us about your testimony. It's very powerful, I believe it's going to bring a lot of faith and hope to the people that are going to listen to this podcast,
100%.
Because like I said, we all go through things, but there's always somebody out there that goes through something more how do I say it,
Difficult.
higher. More difficult.
Yeah.
So it
Absolutely.
it obviously brings more faith into the average believer, that God is there even if the storm is gray or dark,
Absolutely.
But yeah, thank you.
Oh, no problem. No problem.
And thank you, everyone that is watching or listening on the different platforms. I pray that and hope that this piece of a life story touches your life. And if you know someone who might be going through it or something similar, share it. I think having the proof that God can. Like I was telling you earlier, I love testimonies because that's like literally saying, what else do you need? The proof of that God is real, that God works. And I've always said He works in ways that probably we don't like, but at the end of the day, it's like, okay, it makes sense. So yeah, thank you everyone who's watching. Thank you everyone who's listening. We hope you enjoyed today's episode, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you, guys. Yeah. So we always end, not always because we missed a few, but we like our guests to end it with chamoy.
Chamoy.
Chamoy. There you go. You're like, what's that? Oh, thank you, guys.